Hey everybody, Tim here from Lancaster Smokehouse, and today we are making two new cocktails that are going to be on the bar menu coming up as soon as we're allowed to have people back inside. Kind of two riffs on classics. We are doing a Cherry Bounce Old Fashioned. Take on the Old Fashioned with some kind of steep cherry syrup liqueur that's really good. And then we are doing the Streetcar, which is our riff on a sidecar. Streetcar, little shout out to New Orleans streetcars. Really, really good. So let's get to it. Okay, so first what we need to do is we need to make the Cherry Bounce Liqueur. Super simple recipe. Pour it in a little bit of bourbon, drink it straight on the rocks, whatever you like. I've got about 4 cups of pitted cherries here, fresh sweet cherries. So all the cherries go right in there. And then next what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a bunch of sugar. So you could weigh it. You kind of want like similarly close weights, the amount of cherries and sugar. It's a little different every time you make it. It really depends on the quality of your cherries. If you have really good fresh cherries, that's the way it's gonna be the best. I'm gonna add 2 cups of just granulated white sugar. Just get that dancing in there. And they're gonna kind of soak up a lot of that sugar. They're gonna kind of break down, macerate. And next we're just gonna add a bunch of bourbon. So I'm gonna measure that out. I usually do about the same amount of bourbon as I do with the sugar. It's kind of the same process of making a simple sugar. It's equal parts water and sugar. So here I'm just doing equal parts booze and sugar. So we'll do 2 cups. Any kind of bourbon, it doesn't really matter. You're gonna kind of cover up the flavor of the bourbon anyways. And this is just time for your like everyday sipping bourbons. You wanna kind of break down the cherries a little bit. So if you wanna push them around, just crush that up and get the cherries kind of working. So that's it, that's our Cherry Bounce. I usually just toss it in the fridge because that's just where I keep it. I think it keeps a little bit better in the fridge, but with all that sugar, it's gonna be fine at room temperature. Let that sit for, I would say, at least a week because you really want the cherries to break down, release all of their juice, get that intense cherry flavor. Otherwise, you've just made a homemade liqueur that'll impress your friends. It's really, really delicious. You can add to a lot of different cocktails. Yeah, you're pretty badass because you just made your own homemade cherry liqueur. So take that, set that aside. This is the Cherry Bounce that I made about a week and a half ago. So that one's ready to go. It's still got the cherries in it. And you can see it's really changed colors. It's like super dark. And once you've made the Cherry Bounce, building the cocktail, it's one of the most simple cocktails you can make. So we're just gonna take our mixing glass here that I'm gonna use. I got a strainer ready to go. Get some ice. Get your shot glass. So you can kind of play around with these measurements a little bit. I like to do 2 parts bourbon to 1 part Cherry Bounce. It's a little bit sweeter that way, but you can really taste the Cherry Bounce. If you like a less sweet cocktail, which typically I do, then you could do a 1/2 part. There we go. 1 ounce of Cherry Bounce. 1, 2 ounces of bourbon. You can do 1.5 ounce. Again, use the cheaper bourbon, especially when you're making cocktails where you're not gonna be tasting the bourbon so much. And then we're just gonna kind of season it with a little bit of Angostura bitters, couple dashes, not a whole lot, boom. That's all we need. Stir that up. And when you're stirring a cocktail, I like to hold the outside of the glass, and when it gets really cold, kind of the temperature of the ice, that's when you know that it's probably stirred enough. So sometimes you see cocktails that talk about shaken versus stirred, you know, the famous James Bond thing. The rule of thumb is if there is a juice involved in the cocktail, you shake it. And if there's no juice, then you stir it. Because you kind of want to get the juice and the liquor mixed really well together, and that's what shaking does. But when you don't have any juice, you don't need to do that. So all you're trying to do at that point is just get it nice and cold. That's really it. So we're just gonna strain that. Beautiful color, it's got that little tint of red. So we don't wanna add any crushed ice now because that's gonna dilute really quickly. So we're gonna get a cube. And then if you want, I just got a couple cherries here. Always garnish with something that's in your cocktail. Same goes with food, garnish with an ingredient that you're actually using. So I got 2 cherries here, I'm just gonna plop in there. There you go, that's coming to the Lank menu pretty soon. Cherry Bounce Old Fashioned, super delicious, pretty. Couple of those, start the night with, and then move on to straight bourbon, and then you're blacking out. Okay, next up, we are making Streetcar. So riff on a sidecar, classic French cocktail. It's kind of a variation on a sour. Includes cognac and triple second lemon juice. We love bourbon, so we're gonna add bourbon into one of my favorite cocktails. This recipe has lemon juice, therefore it has juice, so we need to shake it. First of all, bourbon. I got Wild Turkey here today. Wild Turkey, not my favorite bourbon, to be completely honest with you, but in a cocktail, it's pretty good. So 1 ounce of bourbon of choice. Save the Pappy Van Winkle for sipping on your wedding day. We're going to do 1 ounce of brandy or cognac. So brandy is what it's typically made with. Typically you would do 2 parts brandy or 2 shots brandy. I substituted that 1 shot for bourbon. The rest is really simple and really basic and traditional. Orange liqueur, so Cointreau, Triple Sec, Grand Marnier is the best one. Grand Marnier is the boss of orange liqueurs. It's also super expensive. So I usually treat out and get like the McInnes Triple Sec. Cointreau is the next step up, which is pretty good. So we are going to do 3/4 ounce of that. Okay, so that's it for our boozes. So next we're gonna do, this is just simple syrup, which is equal parts sugar and water. You can boil it, you can just put it in a mason jar and shake it until the sugar dissolves. And we are going to do equal parts lemon juice, sugar, and triple sec. So 3/4. That's a nice. And then lastly, we have our lemon juice here. 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. Boom, right in there. Okay, so that's everything we need for our cocktail. Fill her up with some ice. The ice will really help the lemon juice and the bourbon and the cognac to come together, so it's really well mixed and incorporated. So what we're trying to do here with the ice is cool it down as much as possible without watering it down. Top of our glass. Shake longer than you think you need to, at least 30 seconds, because you really want it to be ice cold. They say about cocktails, you need to drink them ice cold and really quickly. I like the really quickly part especially. Grab your favorite coupe glass. This is mine I brought from home. Beautiful, look at the design and the detail in that glass. Isn't that beautiful? And then strain it right into your coupe glass. Oh man, boom. Perfect. Garnish it with an orange peel because we use the triple sec, which has the orange in it, so that makes sense. You can garnish it with lemon peel because we've got lemon juice, that makes sense. We just happen to have these super fancy dehydrated lemon slices that I made yesterday for the new menu. So I'm gonna just drop that guy right on top. Oh my goodness, look at that. So that is the Lancaster Smokehouse streetcar, variation on a sidecar with a nod to New Orleans. This is one of my favorite like post big meal cocktails. You're not gonna have dessert, but you still want something a little bit sweet. That's my go-to. If you've been enjoying our videos, make sure you like, subscribe, heart, follow, tag, share, all of that.